As reported by Newsmax on Friday, March 29, 2024, a recent poll by the Daily Mail in collaboration with J.L. partners indicates that the conviction of former President Donald Trump will not significantly affect the voting intentions of his supporters. The poll, which was made public on Friday, illuminates the Trump fan base's unwavering allegiance in spite of the former president's impending legal troubles. Just 5% of Trump's fans, per the poll results, say they would think twice about voting for him in the November election if he was found guilty of a crime. 93% of voters said they would still vote for Trump, indicating that a sizable part of his supporters are steadfast in their commitment. 82% of Trump supporters who responded to the study said they would vote for him even if they were found guilty, and 11% said they would vote for him very likely. On the other hand, only 3% of respondents say they would be extremely unlikely to vote for Trump, and another 2% say they would be somewhat unlikely to do so. Beyond the Trump camp, the poll offers clues into voter preferences. Of those who were surveyed, 43% of potential voters said they would vote for Trump, and 39% said they would vote for Democratic nominee Joe Biden. Remarkably, 7% of respondents endorse independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., 2% back independent Cornel West, and 1% support Green Party candidate Jill Stein. James Johnson, the pollster for the survey and co-founder of J.L. Partners, emphasizes how Trump's base of support has remained strong despite legal obstacles. Johnson notes, "So far in this race, indictments have only helped Trump," implying that convictions might also be ineffective in influencing the allegiance of Trump supporters. He stresses that there aren't any signs pointing to a different result right now. 1,000 probable voters were surveyed between March 20th and 24th, giving an early look at voter attitude before the next election. The survey results, which have a 3.1 percentage point margin of error, provide important insights into the factors influencing the political environment as the race intensifies. The likelihood of legal action hanging over Trump and the tenacity of his supporters highlight the difficulties opponents have in trying to influence public opinion. Even in light of the possible legal repercussions, Trump's fans' unwavering devotion will undoubtedly influence the course of the next election. Additionally, Nicolle Wallace, host of MSNBC, has attacked former President Donald Trump's constant attacks on judges and their families with a sharp tongue. On Friday, March 29, 2024, Mediaite reported that Wallace's annoyance with Trump's recent social media remarks disparaging Judge Juan Merchan and his daughter reached a breaking point during Friday's Deadline White House. Trump allegedly targeted Judge Merchan and his adult daughter in his posts on Truth Social. By calling her a rabid Trump hater and claiming that she stood for radical liberals, Trump incited anger by bringing up the judge's family specifically in his outburst. Mid-segment, Wallace threw her screenplay into the air, clearly frustrated, saying, "So, it's time to do something different." She said she was tired of reading about incidents where Trump's comments resulted in threats and harassment against judges and their families. Wallace underlined how urgently things need to change in response to Trump's attacks on the court. "Like, we're not going to have this conversation again," she exclaimed. "Before I was ready, I appeared on the radio more times than I could count with breaking news on requests for gag orders due to threats against judges and their children." Speaking to Judge J. Michael Luttig, who had earlier provided testimony to the committee on January 6 looking into the Capitol disturbances, Wallace advocated for a change in the way that Trump's acts are perceived. She called attention to Trump's blatant attacks on judicial independence and denounced his apparent manipulation of the legal system to postpone proceedings. "And Judge Luttig, I think it's time," she went on. "Donald Trump disregarded the law. We ought to talk about this nation's dysfunctional judiciary. On the basis of evidence that he hardly disputes, Donald Trump was able to postpone every federal criminal trial. The nation's top court, the Supreme Court, was coerced into a delay tactic by Donald Trump." Wallace emphasized the susceptibility of judges and their families, drawing attention to the dearth of safeguards available to anyone singled out by Trump's statements. "Donald Trump brazenly and repeatedly attacks not just judges," Wallace stated. "Judge Esther Salas, whose son was slain by a lunatic, and I have had the honor of sitting across from each other. The Secret Service does not guard judges. They haven't even always done so. Her child answered the door, for example. Donald Trump isn't going to change. So what will we do differently? According to Mediaite, Judge Luttig emphasized the damaging effects of Trump's attacks on the court, echoing Wallace's worries. He emphasized how Trump has worked hard to undermine the legitimacy of the courts by raising questions about their objectivity and morality. According to Luttig, we all have to understand that from the first time that the former president began his attacks, vicious attacks, on the federal courts and the state courts and their judges, his objective was to delegitimize those courts so that when and if they ruled against him in the various matters that he's been charged with, then at least his followers, if not a good part of the nation, would dismiss those rulings against him as having been politically inspired and motivated. Judge Luttig also chastised the inaction of people in positions of authority to address Trump's behavior. He bemoaned the lack of bravery and determination on the part of people who could hold Trump responsible for his assaults on the rule of law. Acquiesce, which means that no one in a position of authority has handled this matter out of a lack of bravery or volition. Judge Luttig continued, "And we're careening toward the effective end of the rule of law in America until or unless we as a nation address this issue.